the firefighter, who didn't know he was saving his own mother. A man was sitting in his fire truck when his phone started ringing. It was an emergency call. There had been a fire at a house in the nearby neighborhood, and they needed him there ASAP. The man was a firefighter. He'd been working for the department for 18 years. So he didn't need anyone to tell him how serious this call was. He got into his truck and sped off. He arrived at the scene of the crime and saw that the whole front side of the house was on fire. The flames were so high they could be seen from half a mile away. The poor homeowner had already tried to put out the blaze with a fire extinguisher, but it was no use. The fire was just too big. "Get the hose," he shouted to his colleague. "I'm going to try to find someone inside." As he said this, he pulled on his breathing mask and ran towards the burning building. When he entered the house, he coughed violently. Smoke was thick and dark. He could barely see anything in front of him. Suddenly, he heard a voice calling for help. "Hello, is anybody there?" It sounded like a woman. He couldn't see her, but he could hear her, and she sounded scared. He knew he had to do something fast. With great difficulty, he found the source of the voice. She was lying on the floor and had clearly passed out. But just as he was about to go over to her, another explosion shook the house. A part of the roof fell down, blocking the only exit. They were trapped. The fireman carried the woman on his back and ran through the smoke-filled house. Every now and then, the building shook with another explosion. The fireman had no idea what was inside the building, but he carried on regardless. As he moved through the house, he kept calling out, "Can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me?" But the only reply he got was the sound of his own voice bouncing off the walls. He eventually managed to get outside with the woman on his back. To his horror, her face was covered in soot, and she wasn't moving. At first he thought she might be dead. Then he noticed her chest moving up and down slightly. She was alive. He rushed over to where his colleagues were waiting for him, and they quickly took the woman off him. "Call an ambulance," he shouted. "She's still alive, but she's not conscious." He watched as the paramedics worked on her and loaded her onto a stretcher. Then he turned and walked away without saying a word. He couldn't believe what had just happened, and he was also very tired. Moments later, one of his colleagues caught up with him. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked. The fireman nodded. "Yeah, I'm fine. Let's just get back to the station," he replied. His colleague nodded, and they both got into the truck. The fireman still hadn't spoken a word. He was lost in thought. All he could think about was the woman. What had her face been covered in soot like that? And why was she inside the burning building? These questions kept going around in his head. At the fire station, no one said a word to him. They all knew he needed some time alone. But when he did finally speak, it was to ask if anyone had any information on the woman he'd saved. They all shook their heads. No one knew who she was or why she had been in that burning building. It had been a few hours since the incident, and the fireman had barely eaten anything. He kept thinking about the woman and wondering if she was okay. Suddenly, one of the other firefighters came over to him. Hey, listen, I know this sounds crazy, but would you like to go and visit her in the hospital?" "She's awake now, and she wants to see you," he said. The fireman couldn't believe what he was hearing. The woman wanted to see him, but why he hadn't even saved her? It was just his job. Still, he knew that she must have been through a lot of trauma. So he nodded and said, "Sure, why not?" They drove to the hospital together, and the fireman felt a little nervous. He had no idea what to say to her. He walked into her room and saw her lying in the bed with a blanket over her. Looked very weak and scared. "Are you the one who saved me?" she asked. Yeah, I was the one who went inside the house, he replied. But you don't remember me, do you? She asked. The fireman shook his head. He didn't recognize her at all. Her face was covered in soot, so he hadn't been able to see what she looked like. Thank you for saving my life, she said softly. The fireman shrugged. It was just my job. She looked at him for a moment. Then suddenly she started crying. The fireman was taken aback by this. He didn't know what he had done wrong. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean to upset you. No, it's not your fault, she said between sobs. It's just that, well, I never got to say goodbye to my husband and kids. And then I thought I was going to die. But then you came along and saved me. You have no idea what that means to me. The fireman didn't know what to say. This was the first time he'd ever heard anything like this. Usually people just thanked him and sent him on his way. But this woman was clearly traumatized. Listen, I have to go now, he said. Okay, thank you for coming, she replied. He nodded and left the room. Out. The moment he was outside, he broke down. He couldn't hold back his tears anymore. He leaned against the wall and cried. One of the nurses saw him and rushed over to comfort him. Are you okay? She asked. He nodded, trying to stop crying. I'm fine, he lied. The nurse didn't believe him, but she didn't push him to talk about it either. She just gave him a comforting smile and walked away. He got into the truck and drove back to the station. No one said a word to him. They all knew he needed some time alone. When he finally stopped crying, he went to the bathroom to wash his face. As he looked into the mirror, he noticed something strange. There was a necklace around his neck. He didn't remember putting it there. He took it off and looked at it. It was a silver necklace with a heart pendant. Suddenly he remembered. The woman in the burning building had been wearing that same necklace. He rushed back to the hospital to see if she was still there. Luckily, she was. He walked into her room and she looked up at him. Do you recognize this? He asked, holding up the necklace. Her eyes widened. Yes, I do, she said. Where did you find it? I found it in the burning building, he replied. That was my husband's gift to me. How did you know which room to go into? She asked. Which room? He asked. She told him which room it was, and he realized that it was his mother's room. Wait a second, he said. You're my mom. Yes, that's right, she replied. I was so worried about you when I saw the flames. I knew you'd go in after me, but I didn't think you'd actually be able to save me. I had no idea it was you, he stammered. I'm so sorry, she said. I'm sorry too, he replied. But I should be the one apologizing. I had no idea you were inside the building. I could have saved you a lot sooner if I had known. It's all right, she said with a weak smile. You did save me, and for that, I will be eternally grateful. As the days went by, the fireman visited his mother every day in the hospital. She eventually made a full recovery and was able to go home. He was so happy to have her back. And he was also very thankful that she was alive. If he had known it was his mother in that burning building, he would have risked his life to save her even more.